Hi, my name is Megan Frazer Blakemore, and I am here outside my house in Maine today to share a little bit with you about revision. I'm the author of The Water Castle, The Spycatchers of Maple Hill, and The Friendship Riddle, and today I'm going to use the Friendship Riddle to talk about what I do when I revise. For me, all stories start with an idea, usually a what-if question. So for The Water Castle, it was what if the Fountain of Youth was real and we just needed to figure out the science to understand it. For the Spycatchers of Maple Hill, it was what if a girl grew up in a cemetery. And for the Friendship Riddle, it was what if a girl started finding clues inside of library books. Once I have my idea, I grab a snack, I sit down, and I get to work. My first drafts are really messy. I write in my notebooks, I write on the computer, and I put it all together. You need to give yourself permission to write a really bad first draft. It can be awful and terrible. It actually probably should be. Because writing is revising. If you think about the word revision, it looks sort of like revision or see it again. And you need to look at your work in a new way. The first thing I think about is, do I really understand my characters, my setting, and my plot? So I do things like I create maps, I write outlines, and I do character sketches. And that's when I start moving whole big chunks around. Sometimes I might change the beginning, or I might delete a whole scene or add new scenes in. It's a little bit easier though to see some of the smaller fixes. Usually my smaller changes are about asking, am I using just the right word? And I do these smaller changes second because it helps if I understand my character, my setting, and my plot before I make those changes. So here's an example from the Friendship Riddle. On the left is the first draft, and on the right is the final draft. The first draft read, snowdrifts that morning were so high they went right over the sills of our first floor windows. They made their own little peaks right there on the glass. It was like looking into an ant farm, and I squinted my eyes and pretended I could see little tracks through the snow, and that the ants were wearing anoraks while snowshoeing around. The final draft, you can see, is a little bit longer. It goes like this. The secret clue was written on an index card, folded in half, placed in an origami envelope, and then tucked into an old book about the Loch Ness Monster. The morning I discovered it in the library, it was snowing. That winter, it was always snowing. The snowdrifts were so high they went right over the sills of our first floor windows and made their own little peaks right there in the glass. It was like looking into an ant farm, and I squinted my eyes and pretended I could see faint tracks through the snow, and that the ants were wearing anoraks while snowshoeing around. So what changed? The big change is that I added that first few sentences to the opening paragraph. And this is because I knew that the book was about finding different clues around in books. And I wanted to get those clues right in at the very beginning because I thought it would be intriguing and it would hook the reader. And so I described the clues and put them right there in the beginning, and then I don't mention them again for 10 pages because I was hoping to build suspense. There's also one more little change on this page. I switched little to faint. And the reason why I did that is because I was thinking about my character, Ruth. She's a really smart girl, she reads a lot, and I figured she'd be certainly the type of character who uses a really precise word. Little is kind of vague. A lot of things can be little, but faint implies both small and that the tracks barely made a dent in the snow, and that's why it was just the right word for this story. So thinking about the word little, what are a whole bunch of words that you can think of that mean little? Here are some that I came up with. Small, tiny, ant-like, minuscule, itty-bitty, bit, tad, infinitesimal, 1 millimeter. So those are just a few of the many words that all mean little. Now think about your own writing. Imagine you were writing a story about a toddler. Which one of those words would a toddler use? Most likely you were thinking itty-bitty or bit. Now imagine you're writing about a scientist. What word might a scientist use? A scientist is going to use some of the more scientific sounding words like minuscule or infinitesimal, or maybe be really specific and say something like 1 millimeter. So you can see that depending on who you're writing about, you're going to use different types of words. So there you have it, just a little bit about how I do my revising. I hope this helps you with your own writing. If you want any more information about me or my books, please visit my website, www.meganfrazerblakemore.com. And happy writing!